Hey guys, welcome into episode 9 of Unsportsmanlike Hangouts. A dear friend on here today. We go back to what, first grade, Tim?
Yeah, first grade.
And you were taller than my. I wanted to start off. This is my favorite story about you that I always tell people whenever I see a Villanova basketball connection. You were taller than my first grade teacher in first grade. You were like 5'2" or 5'3". She was 5 foot. I'm 5'6" now, 5'7" on a really good day, like the best day, maybe 4th of July. So I'm 5'7", 5'6" now, and you were 3 inches away from that at the age of 7 and 8 years old. So here's my friend Tim Delaney. Thanks for joining us, Tim.
Hey man, thanks for having me, Zach.
Yes, sir.
Go back to long ways.
So Tim, like I said, we go way back. He played basketball at Villanova, and this past year he played at Adelphi University after seeing 2 national championships at Villanova, one as a redshirt, and then obviously being part of one later in his career. And so, Tim, with that being said, what kind of influenced you to gravitate towards basketball than other sports? Like, you have that size, you could easily go on practically with any sport. You can play football, basketball. What pushed you more towards basketball?
Mostly the team sport aspect of it. You know, like you got, who's on your side, and then kind of my family always was there to kind of push me in the right direction. Of you don't just want to. They always compared it to like tennis because my grandfather played tennis and my cousin played tennis, and it was always that was one-on-one, and I like the team sport. So you can still play one-on-one, but you get to play full court.
Exactly. Especially being a big man too, where you have to rely on guys to dump the ball down to you in the low block and the post, and kind of rely on your other guys to set you up to, if you're a dominant force down low, to get you your looks and everything, kind of like what Kobe would do for Shaq and other guys, what they've done for Shaq and other big men in their career. So what was it like when you first started getting traction towards like getting recruited? When you first started, you were playing like AAU basketball back in the day. You played on the EYBL circuit too, right?
Yeah, for a couple of years.
So what was it like while playing with some of those names and starting to get notoriety and have people start looking at you at a young age?
It was a lot of fun. You know, we were out there playing and got to travel around a lot of the country. Got to go up and down the East Coast. So that was fun. Built a lot of great relationships with my friends, and got to meet a bunch of new people.
Who would you say off the top of your head, is there anybody you can remember was the best player that you played against, or some people that you like remember like, oh, this kid's got game? And whenever you'd play like one of those AAU or EYBL games, you knew you had to bring your A game?
From when we were younger, the people that come to mind are like in our area, like
just anywhere,
anywhere. Yeah, too. Like one's Jalen Brunson, because we used to put him up in here at Voorhees, and so there was him, and then my one boy Malik Ellison. We grew up playing AAU together. We kind of stuck together on the same teams, and
just built some great relationships doing that as well. So. Yeah. And then what was it like when you get into high school and you're trying to choose to what your path's going to be? You end up going to Pittman, and that team was really good. You had a couple kids that played a high level of basketball. You had another kid. He went to, where was the point guard or the shooting guard?
Oh, Darnell went to Penn.
Yeah, he went to Penn. He was really good. I remember watching him, and then you were just a dominant force down low, obviously, and just playing with that team.
Hey man,
that was a pretty good team.
Around this, you know? When I went to Pittman initially, I didn't really know where I was going to go to high school. Then talked to my family for a little bit, talked to my uncle, kind of made a family decision. It turned out for the best because, can make anything good. And I built a lot of great relationships. I saw another side of like the Pittman. I like it there, It's I got a lot of great friends from that town. And then being able to go into Philadelphia and play basketball at a different place, it's made me appreciate both sides of it.
What was that like your first connection to Jay Wright when he first reached out to you for the first time? You're like, wow, I have one of the best programs in the country, Big East program, one of the biggest basketball schools there is. in the big market of Philadelphia basketball. There's like the Power Five. There's a Power Five from basketball, Philadelphia basketball college teams themselves. And you got the biggest one of them all coming out to recruit you. What was that like?
Well, I mean, it was cool, but we had the family connection there a little bit too. We had, and the other thing was they weren't really that good before when they offered me. Like when I got offered, they started reaching out to me. I don't even think they were top 25.
Yeah, they were kind of floating around. They would more so they made the tournament, and then it would just be a first round, second round disappointment. It was like we would always expect them to get more so, and that's why for me, I never really thought they would get over the hump. To see them get over the hump and then do it twice in that quick of a period of time was amazing. And then you being there as well was just awesome to see.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. It was I love all the relationships I built there. I love all the people I still know, and I had a great time.
Who were some of those relationships? You were a teammate, like you said, with Jalen Brunson, who is now a point guard. He's unfortunately hurt for the resumption, but he's a point guard in the Dallas Mavericks, who they got Luka Doncic, and Jalen Brunson is no slouch himself. He comes off the bench and really packs a punch of scoring-wise and just facilitating that offense. And you got DiVincenzo playing with another absolute superstar, maybe the face of the NBA right now, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Eric Pascal on maybe the best franchise. You got all these connections with not only guys that you play with in college, but with some big-time NBA franchises that are some of the best in the league. What was it like? You got Mikal Bridges as well. What's it like talking with those guys every so often and just catching up with them?
It's cool. I love talking to them. You know? They're all good people. They come back around Philly every once in a while. Everyone meets up at Nova. Get to see everyone, and you know.
Do they ever talk to you about like the transition from obviously you play AAU and EYBL? That's obviously a lot different than a high school basketball game and different than just youth basketball games. And then you go to college, and that's a whole completely different game from especially high school itself, where you got guys kind of just isoing and just going one-on-one. And then college is more so coach wants you to run an offense and move the ball around and really work. And there's not as high scoring outputs from single effort guys. And then you got these guys, like you said, that you're friends with and played with, and now they're in the pros and they're matching up with LeBron James and guys like that. So have you ever talked to them about the transition process through all those like levels of basketball?
Yeah, I mean, I lived it with them, at least on the court, you know. So I watched how they kind of were able to speed everything up, and it was playing within the system that made, not to give too much, like they're all incredible players. Like if everyone's playing in the same system and you've got 5 people all doing the same thing, like.
That was the epitome of Dante DiVincenzo, where he goes for 31 in the national championship off the bench. Yep. That's the epitome. That's a guy like Lou Williams in the NBA, where if you can add that off the bench, what Jalen Brunson does for the Mavericks now, if you can add that type of stuff off the bench, you don't always have to be the main guy. You can be a Jason Terry in the background and be extremely valuable and important to your team. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. And that's why a lot of people don't flourish when they try and transition, because they keep thinking that they have to prove themselves. And you need to prove yourself in just a different way. It's not more so what you can do capability of by yourself. It's what you can add to a team and a team aspect. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. And it's a shame, because you see guys just flare out so quick that have so much talent. And it's really a shame. And that has something to do with also like the programs that you go to, whether you're in college and a coach is like, all right, this is my best player. I need him to get me 25, 30 a game. Or, all right, this is my best player. I need him to run the offense for me and play good defense and buy into the system. So it's just practically more so off of what your coach like needs from you. And it's just really cool, because Villanova has always been that team aspect with Jay Wright. He's always built that where he wants it to be a team first thing, and no guy really shines over another guy just because everyone's bought into the same system. Is that something that like attracted you towards them during the recruiting process?
Oh you just hit the nail on the head. It was everyone's the same, but everyone has the capability of being the best player on the court at any given time. Like, he had a thing that he would always say, kind of rub some of the guys the wrong way, but it was just truth. Like, if one of you gets hurt, like someone tears their ACL, we're not just going to have 4 people on the court. Like, someone has to step up and play. Like, so I would hope that the guy that tore his ACL, who's still on the team, has the confidence to be like that dude behind me, he's a motherfucker, you know?
Yeah, he's a monster. Yeah, that's what you have to be too. That's pushing guys in practice and just being a good teammate in general. And there's different ways to do it. You see Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan more so they would test you in a way. LeBron James is kind of more so guiding you along the way with him. And there's just a lot of different forms of leadership. And you just more so it's finding out what you have on the team and what you can do with it and how to lead them to the promising. Because everyone takes constructive criticism a different way and in a different manner. Like you said, it rubbed some people the wrong way that know that they can launch over the top on anybody and get to the lane at will and get and ones and kind of facilitate, but they more so, all right, I want you to take a step back. This guy's going to run the offense and you're going to get your open shots based off of what he's going to do for you. And that's just team basketball.
The lane only works so long,
Exactly.
Eventually they're just going to put 3 people in the paint. And then you'll get a charge.
That's exactly. And that's why you see basketball changing now where guys like I didn't understand personally why DeAndre Ayton went #1 overall. I thought he was a really good talent but for today's NBA and what was in that draft, I thought it was crazy that he went #1 because now if you get a guy like DeAndre Ayton, yeah, he's a monster down low. But if you're trading buckets and he's getting 2s and you got a guy like Trae Young ripping 3s, and once you start adding up the totals, like you can do whatever defensive scheme you want to do. And obviously you're not going to be able to score every single time down the floor. But if you can get that 1-point advantage every single time, you saw why were the Golden State Warriors so effective in the past couple years.
Throw a little math in there, you get the play a little defense and throw a little math in there. You get a little different result.
That's very true. But I just feel like more so we got Joel – Nikola, Yusuf Nurkic is underrated when he's healthy. He can bang down low. There's only you can name a handful of guys, though. Anthony Davis can do it, but he's more of a tweener. You got 8 guys can really, really consistently bang down low, and there's not really anything affecting that. So the defense aspect, yeah, we'll give up the quick 2, but if we're going to be running an offense and we're putting out Steph Curry and Klay Thompson on the floor, and we can have them trading buckets with you, we're going to take that every day of the week. So that was more so kind of what happened with the Cavs, too.
You need the guards, too. Like we said.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't got the guards playing defense.
Exactly.
Then
that's like guys like Gary Payton. Gary Payton we saw with did you watch the Jordan documentary?
Mm-hmm. I didn't
so you saw Gary Payton.
Watching it with my dad. I'm almost done, episode 9.
So you got to the Gary Payton episode where they match up in the finals. He's actually playing really well, and he didn't cover him for a while until they put him on him, and then it really changed the dynamic of the series. Gary Payton's the only point guard in NBA history to ever win Defensive Player of the Year, and that just shows you the value right there. Gary Payton, there's all those guys. Everybody, I love when people bring up championship teams. You got D Wade in 06, and they're saying he did it by himself. I love D Wade. But you got guys like Shaq on that team, Gary Payton off the bench as the 13th guy. You know what I mean? There's always been teams. All those teams, LeBron lost to a weak 2011 Mavs team, but Jason Kidd is on that team. You got all these superstar Hall of Famers and everything. So that just really hits on just the team aspect. And that's what was better team basketball than what we saw from the Spurs and that 2011 Dallas Mavericks team. And even the Warriors now, where you got guys like Andrew Bogut, 2015, he would run around for 20 minutes just setting screens at will for Steph Curry to run all the way around the perimeter until he gets an open catch and 3 and shoots it. So
I remember one of the highlights, he got a rebound. He just turned around, pitched it to him. Steph, flying.
And you already got Maurice Spates setting a screen, or they were just so in sync with each other. David West was playing for them, who was a really good player with him and Chris Paul running the pick and roll back in the day in New Orleans. And you just got all those guys. And it's people oh, David West is 38 now. It's dude, he's a borderline Hall of Famer, and he's been a really good player for a while and knows the game of basketball. And if you got that guy as the 9th guy on your bench, the sky's the limit. So talking about all this NBA talk, though, and relating it just to kind of your college career, I'm going to put you on the spot right now, Tim. Who's winning the NBA resumption?
Sheesh. The Sixers.
Sixers?
Go hometown.
You're going hometown?
Yeah.
Would your boy Dante approve of that? You picking the Sixers over the Bucks in the East?
Tell Ragu he can come find me if he has a problem.
That's funny. Yeah, I think
I need my spaghetti sauce anyway. I miss the spaghetti.
Exactly. Yeah, the Ragu.
Wow.
So I think the Sixers actually do have a good chance versus the Bucks just because they match up with them size-wise. But the thing is, can they get there? Are they going to be able to get there? And they do actually, with the schedule that was released, they don't even play until August 1st, was like the third day of the resumption. And their schedule isn't looking too heavy or scary at all by any means. It's very capable of them going.
Again? Who do they have second round?
I'll read you the schedule right here. One sec. So August 1st, they open up with the Pacers, which is actually a good matchup. You get Miles Turner and Joel Embiid. Miles Turner, one thing about him, he's not afraid of Joel Embiid at all. One guy in the NBA that's not afraid of Joel Embiid, he goes right at him and bangs with him and shoots threes and brings him out to the three-point line. Same stuff that Joel does to other guys. So it's going to be a good one. And then the second game they play, they get the Spurs. So you're going to get some all these teams obviously are good. They're all borderline playoff teams. So.
It's like no one's played, and so everyone's been playing, but
it depends on like what level like you have been playing on. You got guys who are established and been making $40 million a year and have a $5 or a couple $1 million basketball court in their home, and they can play literally every single day and play against maybe even their sons that have some game that are like teenagers or can match up with them and train with different guys. And you got other guys that are younger and they even still be living with their parents or something, or living by their own, just young, 18, 19, got a basketball hoop in front of their house and they're shooting that way and just playing on cement in the driveway. So, but it's really going to be interesting to see who has been keeping up with their game and who hasn't. And I mean, it's just pure dedication, honestly.
A lot of them have been working out with the team for a while now.
Yeah.
I mean,
and it depends obviously on the geographic map of where you were. Like if you were in the Northeast area, more so like you were isolated during that time period. If you were out on the West Coast, you could really be working on your game. But then you got guys like the Utah Jazz. They were saying they had rumblings early when the first Corona thing hit. They were saying that they didn't even think Rudy Gobert or Donovan Mitchell's relationship together could ever be patched because of what happened between them through coronavirus. So.
What did they say happened?
Donovan Mitchell was saying he was really felt really disrespected about the whole Rudy Gobert situation, how he's touching the mics and then ended up testing positive. And then Donovan Mitchell ended up testing positive as well. So there's a lot of talks about that locker room being separated, and there hasn't been it was more so when it first started, like early mid-March. But
how do you do that?
That's what I'm saying. I feel like that's more so immature. Like Rudy Gobert, I feel like that's really immature for someone to try and hold Rudy Gobert responsible, because no one really knew how this was going to take off and what effect it was going to actually have, and no one knew what was really going on. And then now you're going to try, and just because he tested positive and he was doing something that he might have done how many times in his career, joking around in a light manner and just trying to be fun. And obviously it's tough that happened, but no one was saying, oh, wear masks, wear gloves, this, that, the other during that time period. No one was saying that. So it was just a naive, and it was a mistake by him. But I feel like Donovan Mitchell, that was to out your brother like that, especially publicly. It's going to be tough, and that's going to be a weird dynamic to see. Like I said, they're the first game on the resumption scheduled, Jazz Pelicans. So we got to look at Zion Williamson. Apparently he was playing over at 300 pounds. He was playing this season at over 300 pounds. So there's a story about LeBron James when he was on the Heat, went from 271 during the one final series versus the Spurs to 287 and played. And I think it was the series that he won. So I have no clue how that happens, getting bloated. How are you running around blocking Thiago Splitter at the rim on just a dead jump with no crow hop or anything, and you're at 287 pounds? I just don't understand that. And you saw what Zion was doing. Have you seen the clip of Zion when they played the Bucks and he gets the rebound on Giannis under the rim and rips the ball out of his hands?
I haven't.
Oh man, you got to watch that right after that. You think obviously Giannis is a physical specimen, bullying guys down low. They fight for a rebound under the rim, and he rips the ball right out of Giannis's hands. Giannis falls right to the floor, and Zion goes right up for a dunk. It's something to watch. You're like, wow, this kid is something else. So for him to be at that weight and doing that, and that team that's a team. How do you feel about the Pelicans? Just what the talent that they have. You got Drew Holiday that can match up 1 through 3 defensively with anybody and run an offense for you, and he's a pretty good player. Not a pretty good player. He's a pretty elite player. He's a top 25 player in the league. You got Brandon Ingram, who's made himself borderline top 25 if he's not already. He's an all-star this year. Lonzo still, and you got a healthy Zion. Like this team, this might be a team that benefited through the league getting canceled. How do you feel about that team with the talent wise?
The talent, you just said it, dude. The talent's there. Just about
It's about the young mesh, you know what I mean? Especially because, like you said, the team basketball aspect.
They need 2 more people on the bench.
Exactly. That's the team basketball aspect because you can play team atmosphere one way, AAU, and then high school one way, college one way, and then NBA team basketball is a whole nother thing where it's like, all right, it's team basketball where your best player, you have to be ready for him at all times. You know what I mean? That's how they play team basketball in the NBA. It's like LeBron James is either going to come down the lane, dunk it, hit a step back, fade away 3, or you have to be ready for a guy like Avery Bradley who's not playing in the resumption, but just an example, a guy like Avery Bradley has to be ready to have the ball dished out to him at any time. So that's kind of more so that. So playing off of and figuring that out in the NBA. And just with all that talent, like you said, it's kind of hard to figure out where everyone falls in line. So you got Brandon Ingram. He's like, Zion Williamson comes as the number 1 overall pick, one of the most hyped up prospects ever. You got Brandon Ingram, who's now an all-star, who's been balling this year. Lonzo Ball still has that quiet confidence to him, more so not what his dad really thinks with that overwhelming confidence, but he has more so of a quiet confidence, isn't a baller himself. So it's kind of they have to fall into line and figure out, especially getting rid of Anthony Davis and trying to figure out how to move forward with that. So let me see.
How do you think they're going to play Anthony Davis?
What'd you say?
How do you think they're going to play him?
Anthony Davis. I think Anthony Davis is going to be a tough matchup for teams just because he's on that tweener where
he's in the middle. Like Zion is down low.
Oh yeah, the Zion that matchup, Zion versus Anthony Davis, is actually a really, really intriguing matchup just because they're more so kind of like each other, where they have that power where they can bang up top with the big boys, but they are quick and athletic and fast, and they will run right past any big man that tries to cover them one-on-one on a dribble. So, and if they bang down low with each other, that strength and those bodies together, that's going to be interesting because Zion gives up some height, obviously, but strength-wise, I think he might have the edge. So it's going to be interesting because just like we've talked about, just like a lot on this podcast so far is just the way that basketball is played on every different level. NBA basketball regular season is completely different than playoff basketball. And we don't even know what Corona basketball is.
All going towards 3-point line, more defense. Huh?
Exactly. But then it goes down more so when you get those tough 24-second, 22, 23-second grinding possessions on defense, half-court basketball. And that's with a team like the Sixers why they have an advantage because if they can get the 3-ball finally going and get that in order, you got a guy like Joel that can bang down low and really, really just beat down a defense. And then once you start having to double him, there's a wide open guy out on the perimeter now. So that's when it's going to be interesting. But for the Sixers to be successful, Al Horford is going to have to make those shots like he was making for the Bucks last year, and he's going to have to do that for the Sixers. He hasn't really done that this year. Like you said, everyone finding their roles. They kind of just the Sixers were trying to throw out the 5 best guys this whole year, just 5 best guys, 5 most talented guys on our team, throw them out there. And that obviously did not work because those guys kind of more so all play a pretty similar way with being physical and with that size where they need to have a little bit more versatility and quickness and 3-point shooting ability. So that also falls on a guy like Tobias Harris who needs to make his shots. Last year I watched Tobias Harris versus the Raptors. I think it was like game 4 at home, missed like 10 corner threes and shoot like 3 of 15 from 3. But it's always coming down on Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid and what they're not doing. But it's the guys around them as well.
For sure.
And I think exactly. And I think just the Sixers, obviously, they signed Al Horford this season. Kind of Al Horford was the kryptonite for Joel Embiid, where he was a guy that could really handle him down low. And then when Joel would get tired and
rest, because
exactly when Joel wants to get a rest and float out to that perimeter, Al Horford usually when he was on the Boston Celtics, he would have the stamina to push him out to the perimeter and make those shots and kind of demoralize. And that's why the Celtics have been the bullies for the Sixers for a while now until this year where the Sixers got the upper hand on the regular season matchups. But with the momentum that the Celtics have, because that's a team that set up really well for today's basketball, just perimeter-wise, just what they have on the floor. They got a guy, Kemba, that can get you 30 at any time, dropped 60 on the Sixers like 2 years ago or a year ago, And then you got Jason Tatum, who's growing into one of the better players, young players in the league, who can do a little bit of everything. And then Jaylen Brown as the third guy is so important. Just having a guy that's defensive minded. He was playing power forward, small power forward at California in college. And now he's a 2-3, and he's extremely athletic. Kind of reminds me of like what Kawhi was doing for San Diego State, and then now what he's doing in the NBA. And a guy that can just jump with the best of them. That was JJ Redick used to have to try and cover Jaylen Brown last year and years before in the playoffs, and the athleticism difference was just immaculate. And you saw him catching oops on him, dunking on him, this, that, the other, taking him off the dribble. And that's why the Sixers had to get more perimeter sound, because having guys, it's nice to have guys like Marco Bellinelli who can shoot and JJ Redick, but
yeah, well, that's sort of the Sixers have always been able to do it like different ways. Like that's kind of what
exactly.
When you got Joel out there and he's tired, they slow it down. When you got Joel off, they speed it up. When they got the small guards, Joel's got to play some defense because the guards are going to be hitting threes.
Exactly, and pick and roll and stepping up in the
can't really take
stuff like that. So. And that's why it's tough because the Sixers have yet to find out how to like play around Ben. And it's like I feel like he is a type of player where he's so talented. It's kind of like I don't even really know what he's about to do on the floor. Like he can get to the rim at will. He can pass the ball with the best of them from all different types of angles. He runs the pick and roll well, like we saw when they played the Clippers this year, and when they finally started putting Ben on the baseline, more so in the corner, and Joel would set a pick on the low block, and he would be able to get around him to the rim and finish. And it was Zizic isn't blocking Ben's shot. Ben went for like 27 and triple double that game. And then you get once they start collapsing that way, you dump it down to Joel on the other side. So they need to more so play off each other. Like Joel wants the ball on the low block, back somebody down, hit a fadeaway three, or get around them and get to the rim. And it's like, Joel, you can help Ben out by setting picks for him and playing in that manner. But you know who that also falls on? And I talk about this every podcast, Brett Brown. Who do you think is the biggest issue, you would say personally, is for the hometown team, the Philadelphia Sixers? If you had to put it on one guy had to be the scapegoat out of it's Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, Brett Brown, Elton Brand. Who would you say it is?
I think it's not really a person. I think it goes on like the communication side of it. And that's both people. So it's like, because Brett Brown just probably, like you see how those dudes talk on interviews. They got their own opinions. They know what they got to do, and they're really fucking good.
Exactly, yeah. That's why it's so frustrating for them to be caught in this type of like loop of just the same old bullshit. You know what I mean?
You try to put them in you ever see Glory Road?
Who was that?
You ever see the movie Glory Road?
No, I haven't. I might put it on the bucket list for today if I got some time though. Glory Road, you said.
No, it's one day the coach finally wakes up. He's like, we'll play both ways, man. And all of a sudden, it's when Texas. What were they? Texas A&M back in the day. Texas Mighty Miner. They won the national championship. Beat Kentucky.
Oh, really? Yeah, that just talks about like the whole podcast where it's like I feel like you said, like it was a perfect point that you said where they had their own opinions on their own interviews, and I feel like Brett Brown, he says that he tells Ben to shoot, but it's like a public statement, and he literally has never said that directly to Ben Simmons himself, and that's where the disconnect is between them, and that's a great point, like you said, where. You can be saying one thing about it. It's like, is Ben Simmons watching the interviews of his coach after the game? You know what I mean? Like he's living his life. He already talks to the coach enough. So you got to talk to him in person about that. And I feel like I always tell people this. I feel like it's more so they built the buddy connection of just the Australian having that connection from day one and way back in the day with Ben knowing Brett forever. It's like, it's so buddy that when he has to discipline him and try and put him in place that he really can't more so do it because it's on that type of relationship. And I feel like that's where he needs to get more.
Come on, man. If he brought him over, it's like, wake up.
Exactly. I feel like it's more so he's got to get tough love, and Brett Brown's got to, sometimes he just lets the Sixers get marinated on a run. Like there's a team's going on a 16-0 run and he wants them out there to figure it out and play. And it's like, it's been happening for 5 minutes now. You have to call a timeout like this. You stop trying to like teach your players a lesson that they're not going to learn because they're in such a hole. There's some times where you can teach lessons and actually let guys figure stuff out themselves. And there's other times where you got to call a timeout and really talk to them and really get in their heads and literally mold them and shape them Rubik's Cube wise into what you want them to do. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who has the vision of what you want to see happen.
Outside the lines, because when the people are inside the lines, it's like, well, he has his part in the lines. You know, he's got the
exactly.
He is on the court.
And that's why I get nervous. You see all these assistant coaches. Assistant coach the other day for the Sixers got interviewed for the Knicks job. Last year, Monty Williams gets the Suns job. And I'm thinking all these guys are getting a lot of interest from around the league. Brett Brown came from Greg Popovich, so it's kind of like a similar situation where he came from the Spurs and he was getting notoriety from being on that staff. And it's like, are we letting these guys out of the in-house and they're actually a better coach and they hit home better with the players than Brett Brown himself, and they're getting jobs all across the NBA, and the Sixers are stuck in a loop, and they're potentially going to fire Brett Brown if they stay in this loop, and very soon, if not, I wouldn't say it with the resumption. I actually put a poll up on Twitter where I think he would just be safe just based off the asterisk style of this format for the playoffs, but next year, anything he could get fired mid-season if they start off slow and they got the same roster cooking up and it's the same guys and the same bullshit happening. So that's what makes me nervous. You got Monty Williams getting jobs. You got all these different guys moving all over the place. And it's like, are these guys that could have actually been the successor to Brett Brown and actually lead this team and know how these guys actually operate?
Very true. Very
so,
true.
What do you think is the number one thing you would say the Sixers have to do to a certain style that they have to play to really have success in this resumption?
I mean, there's so many different ways to play basketball, bro. You just got to play the same way as everyone else on the team. As long as everyone's on the same page and everyone's doing the same thing, that's how you win. That's kind of what Villanova taught me that, because there were times when there were no big guys over 6'5" on the court, all guards.
Yeah. You see what the Rockets are doing now. They got PJ Tucker hanging down low, but they're gonna 5-wide you, and if you can't catch up, that's what we're talking about adding totals and math wise. If you can't catch up to them on the scoreboard, and now it's different where they had Chris Paul last year. I'm one of the biggest Chris Paul fans there is, but more so now. Obviously, he's more limited with that size, being 6'1", only 170 or 6 foot. I would be generous being 6 foot. He's limited, but you got a guy now like Russ Westbrook where Rockets want to spread you out, but then you can also kick it out to Russ and he can pump fake you at the 3-point line and then just attack the rim just ferociously. So now, and Harden can do the same thing. So now you're kind of caught in a bind. Like, how do I play these guys? If they're both on and they can both go for 30, 40, and then you got Eric Gordon give me 15, 20, like, this team is going to be extremely hard to beat. Robert Covington playing defense. This team's going to be really, really hard to beat. And that's all just based up on matchups. And that's like me saying, like, the Sixers, can they get there? Can they get to the Bucks? And every team plays different. You got last year Greg Monroe playing some minutes versus the Bucks.
Yeah, I mean, they play different doesn't mean you can't beat them at their own game. It's like,
exactly, yeah, that is true.
If not even beating them at their own game, like, you just do yours better or do yours different or do yours I don't know.
Exactly. And that's what guys like versatility, where like these teams like the Rockets come at you in so many different ways. The Lakers, they can bang you down low, run pick and rolls with AD and LeBron. LeBron can bang you down low. AD can bang you down low. AD can facilitate if he wants to at the top of the key for a couple possessions, switch it up. There's just so many different things they can do to you, and they have Anthony Davis, who, like I said, can like truly bang down low with bigs, and he can bring you out to the 3-point line. So just based off of this, and there's so many versatile guys coming into the NBA, all these matchups are just going to be really interesting because guys might think that the NBA is coming back and it's going to be played in a certain manner, and then there's other guys like, well, this is a whole nother ballgame. There's no fans. I don't care what anyone thinks of my game. I'm going to go Zach Randolph and post you up 10 times this game and get 20 points on you like that. So it's the stuff that's always interesting, and there's just so many different ways to attack it. But our co-host Sean on here, who couldn't make it on today, is saying he thinks it's not Brett Brown. It's more so Elton Brand, and that's what his post has his comment on here. His other comment, Sixers offense struggled this year because they had one guy who could hit a jump shot consistently last year, and they lost him and replaced him with a center. Which is true. That just go more so on how do you play these guys. Al Horford has to come off the bench. And you just can't have Joel and Al Horford in the same lineup, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But when you play against teams like a guy –
you said it, 9 guys, right?
Yeah, exactly. So when you play against a team like the Bucks, you got a guy like Brook Lopez that can really stretch you out. He's a stretch five. And then you got Giannis attacking the paint. You're going to have another guy outside of Joel Embiid to a second rim protector, and a guy like Al Horford has almost been playing out of position his whole career. He's been forced into that power forward role for so long, but he came into the league at Florida, and he came into the league as a center. So more so, you bring him off the bench and put him back in his normal role and switch it up, give Joel a break. And Joel obviously doesn't have that stamina, and I would even say more so now. We don't know if he's eating Chick-fil-A or working out right now. I would say give him 26, 28 minutes a game, the best he can, ease him into it in the beginning, get his stamina up, give Al 26, 27 minutes too, and you got a good split of the best center tandem in the league.
Yeah, I agree.
And a lot of versatility. And then when you can even, if you want, there's other lineups you can roll out. You got Ben Simmons who can cover the fives if he needs to. He can cover the rim for a couple possessions on a couple minutes of time, getting breaks for your other centers, run small ball. And you can have him at the five playing defensively and then bring up the ball at the other court. So there's just so many options for what the Sixers can do, and all teams around the league just with talent, like we said, a team like the Pelicans and how many different ways they can attack you. So just the NBA resumption itself is going to be very interesting. And so you're going to lock in your pick, Tim. Who are you taking? Bringing home the Larry O'Brien.
I'm sticking with the Sixers.
Sixers, lock it in.
Lock it in.
Who would they be playing?
I don't know. Lakers.
Lakers?
Who's on the other side? I haven't even seen the bracket.
Yeah, I think it's more so they're going to go off the bracket now just for like the seeding, and then once they set it up, they'll have like the conferences like split like that, so they can make it like that, and then we'll see what happens. I think West-wise, an LA team has a really good chance, but like I said, the Rockets are coming. You got two hungry dogs. James Harden hasn't ever been a winner yet in his career, but he definitely wants to shake that narrative. And Russell Westbrook, I don't have to tell you about his mentality. So, but Tim, it was a pleasure you joining me on here today. Thank you, taking out time of your day. Good luck with all your ventures. Or anything you want to promote or anything on here? Train anybody with basketball or anything like that? Or
I am doing a little bit of training with basketball.
Awesome. You got some brothers too, right? You got a younger brother who's quite the basketball player himself, and another brother too. And your mom used to coach the youth basketball locally around here too, and she was like the most intense one around here. So
yeah, she definitely taught us how to play. So now trying to pass it along.
Yes, sir. Where's your brother playing basketball at right now?
He's up at Adelphi.
Adelphi. Oh, yeah, you guys teamed up there. So what was that experience like right before we get out of here? Last question I'll ask you. What was that like finally playing with your brother and just being able to experience that?
That was my favorite part. I got to play with my brother, and that's really all I wanted out of it, honestly. Exactly. It doesn't get better. It's short and simple. It doesn't get better than that. That's the family aspect. You guys know each other like the back of your hand. How many times you played basketball together at your house or on a court? You guys know each other. You throw a lob when you see him backdoor and he doesn't even know it's coming, but then he finishes it. You know what I mean? There's stuff like that. There's just that chemistry that you guys have going. So, but like I said, appreciate it, Tim. You joining me on here, former Villanova Wildcat national champion and currently at Adelphi. With his brother playing basketball. So thank you for joining me. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And hopefully we can link up locally. I see you out at the bar. Hopefully we can link up when all this ends. So just stay safe out there and appreciate you joining me, bro. For sure.
Yes, sir. You too.
Peace.
Wash your hands.